Truckers from the Wyobraska region and beyond received lots of support from residents as part of a coast-to-coast trucker freedom convoy. KNEB.TV News starts right now.
From your trusted source for news in western Nebraska and eastern Wyoming, this is KNEB.TV News. Presented by Platte Valley Companies, premier provider of financial services.
Hello, I'm Ryan Murphy. This is KNEB.TV News, powered by Platte Valley Companies. Thanks for joining me. In our top story, truckers driving east were met by residents of the Panhandle and southeastern Wyoming as one of several trucker freedom convoys entered Nebraska Thursday afternoon. Approximately 100 people gathered on the very first Interstate 80 overpass inside Nebraska, holding American flags and waving as trucks and others head east, and many of those also heading west honked their horns. Kevin Stocker of Scottsbluff, a candidate for the Public Service Commission, helped promote the gathering online and was among those present, explaining to KNEB News why it was important to be there.
These people are giving up a lot of money to travel on behalf of freedom, and I thought it was the best thing we could do is support them financially or with donations. That's going to be gathered in Big Springs tonight. Or the least we could do is get out here and give them a wave and thank them for doing this.
The convoy that started in Oregon continued to Big Springs for the night before a scheduled start this morning as they continue east. Several other convoys from around the country, inspired by the recent Freedom Convoy in Canada, are all headed to Maryland with the intention of converging on Washington, D.C. Well, $16 million of the state's share of ARPA funding would be directed to public health districts across the state under a bill recently considered by the legislature's Appropriation Committee. Under LB 1138, $10 million would be split among the 18 public health departments for one-time infrastructure needs and any other pandemic-related costs, including testing, PPE, and other preventative measures, with the remainder proportionately distributed as premium pay for staff. Panhandle Public Health District Director Kim Engel testified in favor of the measure, saying the mental toll during the pandemic has been dire for community members and staff alike.
We started having our EAP provider do group sessions. The emotional toll just got to be so much. And what we found is actually that was quite successful, and it took the stigma away from them then individually reaching out. We started it just with the contact tracers, but we saw that it was bringing so much relief that we just opened it up to all of our staff, and we continue to do that every month.
There was no testimony against the bill. We'll have more news right after this.
The journey of a dream becoming reality. When we're young, a dream develops into a passion. That passion continues to manifest and grows as you do. It becomes all you want to do and all you want to be. It gives you direction. It drives you. Then your dream has become a reality. When that dream is ready to be reality, Platte Valley Bank will be with you every step of the way.
Life Care promises us that we are looked after and taken care of properly.
If I didn't have Life Care, I would be probably scared to death about having enough money for when I got older or when I got sick.
Moving in here was an easy decision and in fact a no-brainer. I looked at it as actually buying long-term care insurance, and in retrospect, a good move.
One of the things that convinces me that we did the right thing is no matter what happens, we will constantly be taken care of.
The whole thing is just vital because you don't have to be worried about what's ahead for you. It's there, it's in black and white, and that's reassuring.
This is home. It has been from the day I moved in.
Welcome back. A 49-year-old Scottsbluff man who was charged with first-degree sexual assault of a minor and intentional child abuse no injury was found not guilty by a jury of his peers yesterday morning. Daniel Lara Sr. had to wait just 45 minutes for the jury of 12 to return their not guilty verdicts. Defense attorney Martin Chalupka spoke with KNB News yesterday morning and said that the jury spoke in 45 minutes that Danny Lara is an innocent man. He was and still is. Court filings also showed that during Wednesday's portion of the trial, prosecuting attorney Kirk Fellhelter made a motion to amend the charges, but District Judge Andrea Miller denied that request. Judge Miller also denied Chalupka's Wednesday motion for a directed verdict, leaving the matter to be decided by the jury. Lara was arrested in January of 2021 after statements were made by a 13-year-old girl during a forensic interview at Capstone. Well, it was a busy week for law enforcement across the state as they responded to multiple calls for disposal of explosives. On Monday, the Sheridan County Sheriff's Office notified the NSP bomb squad that they had located what was believed to be a cannon round at a residence in Rushville. Upon inspection, troopers identified the device as an artillery projectile fuse and believed that this was a live explosive device and was transported to a safe location and destroyed with a countercharge. Last week in Fremont, the bomb squad detonated a grenade that was found in a home. And on Sunday in Antelope County, a practice bomb was found, transported to a safe location, and destroyed. And Governor Pete Ricketts was joined by the chair of the legislature's Revenue Committee and 2 department directors to press home a message that higher revenue projections mean the funding is available to meet several of the governor's agenda goals. The revised revenue forecast projects $775 million more in funding through fiscal year 2023, with Ricketts saying that means his trio of tax relief bills can all move forward. Senator Luann Linehan of Omaha said approval of the measure will have an impact on more than just those with incomes of $100,000.
Groceries are up, gas is expensive, homes are outrageous. These are not rich people, and we need to make sure that we're doing our part to make sure they stay in Nebraska and they can be successful. And when we have these kinds of revenues, we have no right to keep that money from those families.
Additionally, Department of Natural Resources Director Tom Riley told reporters completing the canal project is a key to securing the state's economic future.
If we don't do that, the state of Colorado really has no obligation to protect that water for us. And in fact, we know from what their state legislature is doing in their own water planning projects that they hope to and want to be able to use that for their own purposes. So without building the canal itself, we really have no way to enforce our own entitlement.
The governor said the higher revenue projections also mean the funding is in place to take actions on both the Perkins County Canal and the replacement of the Nebraska State Penitentiary. Well, still to come, Bill Boyer in with a cold, snowy weekend weather forecast. I'll have that right after this.
What a year 2020 was. Now's the time to get out and travel this summer to see family and friends you were not able to see this last year. Spend more time enjoying your trip by flying United Airlines, operated by SkyWest with daily flights to and from Denver. Reserve your flight today and remember United miles can be earned and redeemed with your flights. While at the airport, stop and enjoy authentic Italian food at Roma Italian Restaurant. And don't forget, Thrifty Car Rental is here for your car rental needs. Make life easier, relax, and hitch a ride with your BFF, Western Nebraska Regional Airport.
Welcome to Kelly's, home of the Valley's best selection of wine, spirits, and beer. Whether you're brand loyal to the tried and true brew or really enjoy trying something different and new, Kelly's has something for everyone. Family owned and operated and right on your way on West 27th Street in Scotts Bluff. Kelly's Liquor. If you can't find it at Kelly's, it's not worth drinking.
I really like how our OB department takes our limited amount of doctors and turns it into a strength. Even though we only have a couple of people, you get to know them well over your entire pregnancy. We have 2 state-of-the-art labor rooms that are new with our last addition. We have a couple of very nice postpartum rooms also right here in the hospital so they can get as much time with mom and baby as possible.
The Evergreen Credit Card by FNBO. Earn unlimited 2% cash back on every purchase. Every day. Everywhere. Never worry about expiring points or category restrictions. Plus, There's no annual fee. Only from the Great Big Small Bank, a bank ever ready for you to earn more, wherever life leads. Evergreen by FNBO.
This is KNEB.TV Ag News from the FNBO Ag Desk. FNBO, the Great Big Small Bank.
Welcome to this week's Cattle Call. I'm Susan Littlefield here on the Rural Radio Network. Once again, an interesting type of week. And I'm broadcasting on location today. So let's take a look at what's been happening in these markets, because obviously the way these grain prices have been trading have made for some nervous cattle producers. And Brad Koima joins us. He's with Koima and Varlick out of Sioux Center, Iowa. And Brad, I don't think I have not talked to a cattle producer yet that isn't talking about the nervousness as they watch what happens globally and what it's doing to their grain prices.
Well, you're right. Neither have I. And Susan, it's like, I don't know how many times I've heard of this, a commentary that they go like, you got to be kidding me. You know, first a fire, then COVID, then we finally got this thing going, right? And we're making a little money feeding these cattle and feels like we're getting into tighter numbers. And now we got to worry about World War III. And I don't mean to make light of it. Certainly, this is a very troubling and worrisome situation going on there. So, yes, and as we've talked about before, you know, cattle seem to always, react negatively to uncertainty, right? So that's what we've been dealing with here a little bit. But I think there's a practical thing that's happening here in the front end of the market as well, Susan, and that is as the cost of gain has been escalating here the last while. Clearly, the Ukraine. The wheat story is the top of the story on this, inability to ship wheat out of Ukraine, but that's a feed grain, so that makes the corn go right with it, and that's rallied the corn obviously sharply here. So, we're looking at corn at 750 or 60 in the bunk here, and I'd imagine in Texas and Kansas it's 75 cents to $1 more than that. So we've got people willing to sell some cattle, probably more willing so than they would have been otherwise. They want move them to the other side of the equation. So now that's a little negative right up front because people are selling cattle easier, but that isn't necessarily really bearish either, because now you're pulling some cattle forward, I guess, so I think that's where we're at right now. A little bit of relief in the corn price might change the market pretty quickly.
So it's been extremely dry. And as I talked to producers and folks from Oklahoma, Kansas, they said there's not a lot of cattle out grazing those wheat stalks because there's just nothing there.
No, you're right. Almost none. In fact, you really have to look hard, and maybe some irrigation stuff and stuff like that. So yeah, that's a good point, because you're coming off that cattle and feed report that we had between the last time you and I visited, which was largely neutral. But people have talked about, wow, that's a lot of cattle on feed, right? I mean, it's like almost the biggest in history, or it is. And some of that explanation for that is because we've placed a lot of cattle earlier than we would have otherwise, so they are on feed, right? That's how they get counted. So instead of going to that wheat pasture first and getting grown up a little bit, they've gone right into a feed yard. I think. We saw that in the north. I placed yearlings in July and August. The cattle typically I would have gotten August and September because they ran out of grass. That's also moved all those cattle forward as they get fat. So, if I had a look at the what you were asking about or commenting about the wheat pasture thing, I think you've maybe moved some cattle out of later third quarter into, I don't know. To me, those cattle would typically been more like September, October cattle that we've maybe moved into July and August now. And we really don't need to add any more numbers to the August slot already. That's always a troublesome time, right? Demand's poor, and you got a lot of calves on feed. And, if I had to pick a soft spot in the market supply wise, it's definitely in that August slot.
All right, I want to ask you about the month of April. We're into March now, but is April more the month we need to be thinking about when it comes to purchasing and playing the market? I don't want to use the word playing the markets, but you know what I mean.
Well, yeah, I think I do. If you look at any seasonal book, right, you'll see that, typically you should sell your summer cattle sometime around, my middle daughter's birthday is today. That's an easy way for me to remember. The early part of March is typically a seasonal time where one looks to lay off some hedges in the summer. Okay. So That's the seasonal. Now, we haven't had a seasonal that's worked very good at all for about 3 years because of all the distortion of the black swan events that we've had. I think what's unique about this year's March and April is that what I hinted at a little bit is that typically we're still selling yearlings here in the north, and we won't be. I think we've pulled that whole crop ahead 45 days. Now, granted, these calves will have done better too, because the reason is performance, because we haven't had winter hardly, but it's going to be hard to get a calf fat in April. And as soon as that weather starts to warm up, and as soon as you get within a little bit of reach of Mother's Day, for instance, all those beef features start to gear up. And I think one thing that we have proven the last couple of years, that the demand, especially domestic demand, as well as global, but particularly domestic demand, is excellent. So I think as we move into that time frame, I'm going to call for a contra-seasonal rally going into April is what I think. Now, if again, the situation with the Russia, Ukraine, if that escalates into something worse, I've got to be able to change my mind. But I would like to think that maybe we can get this thing moved on down the road here in a week or two and figure out some resolution. Clearly the world is speaking loudly against what's going on. Let's hope we can get to some kind of resolution, get back to a normal market.
All right, sounds good. Thanks for joining us this week, Brad.
Sure.
Brad Koyman's been joining us for this week's Cattle Call. Just a reminder, folks, commodity futures and options involve a substantial risk of loss, not suitable to all investors. And that's the Cattle Call right here on the Rural Radio Network.
The Evergreen Credit Card by FNBO. Earn unlimited 2% cash back on every purchase. Every day. Everywhere. Never worry about expiring points or category restrictions. Plus, there's no annual fee. Only from the Great Big Small Bank, a bank ever ready for you to earn more, wherever life leads. Evergreen by FNBO.
Logos in Gearing is the place to get all of your school spirit gear, personalized gifts, and promotional items for your business and employees, and banners for any special event. Logos is also the only place to stop for custom screen printing or embroidery. You can even design it yourself on their interactive website. Stop into Logos today. They'll design it, print it, and have it to you in no time. There's no job too big or small for Logos. That's Logos in Gearing.
Well, let's take a peek at what's happening on your weekend community calendar. The Community Calendar is brought to you by Riverstone Bank. First State Bank is now Riverstone Bank. Community strong with the same people you know and trust.
Find out what convenient really means at the Western Travel Terminal. Start with our great selection of food and drinks, from for real milkshakes and fresh brewed coffee to snacks and hot food. Next, check out our beer and spirits with their everyday low prices. Finally, let us work for you with our full-service gas station and automatic truck and car wash. All this can be found at 822 South Beltline in Scottsbluff. Western Travel Terminal, your convenient shopping, restaurant, and full-service gas leader.
Swipe right, swipe left, endlessly searching. Finding the perfect match isn't always perfect, but it can be when it comes to finances. Nora found the perfect business loan. Jenny opened her first savings account. Grammy loves her checking account. We found a match for Wilson Farms. The Sandersons were matched with a mortgage. Regardless of your financial situation, Platte Valley Bank will match you with the perfect solution. Find your match at Platte Valley Bank.
And finally tonight, a couple who owns a pair of retail coffee locations in Scottsbluff will have a new building in Gering, which could become their third. Scottsbluff County Commissioners on Thursday afternoon unsealed bids for the former U.S. Bank Motor Branch, and Ron and Sarah Schluter made the only offer at $155,000. They own the Emporium Express locations inside Regional West and Main Street Market, which continued after they decided to close their Emporium restaurant on First Avenue. The county board had previously set fair market value on the former building at $180,000, but by state law, the lack of a bid at that price gave them the option to consider any other bids, and they decided to accept the offer. Well, that does it for us this time. Thank you so much for tuning in. Stay safe out there. We'll see you back here on Monday.